Hey, yo. What's up? 4 games. This is probably the last time we get 4 games unless, maybe not. Maybe if a couple of these teams that are down 3-1 win today, we might get another 4-game slate. Friday potentially could have a 4-game slate if some of these teams can win, which who knows? Maybe Washington without Embiid, small meniscus tear, could end up doing just that. Player props, bets, DFS Q&A. Whatever you got, get up in here with your questions. Let's get it, gang, says Zay. Yeah, what's up? Fellas, what's going on, Mark? Anyone in here from New England, says Mark. Not your boy here. Romeo Langford. Yeah, he played well. What did he shoot? 5 of 10 overall. At one point last night, he was shooting 5 of 10. Let me pull it up on DK Live. So he says, thoughts on Romeo Langford. He has been sent home packing. But last night he played well. Best game of the season for Romeo Langford. And he went for 17 points. The DK Live doesn't have the shooting percentages. It was 5 of 10 at one point. It was like 4 of 7 or 3 of 7 from 3. He didn't really have any peripheral stats. Well, he picked up 8 points on steals and blocks. So that'll be one thing. What's up, Sal? What's going on, Andrew? How you doing? Suns in 6, somebody says. It is sure looking that way. New England in the house. There you go. If you had to make a 3-leg parlay bet, what would it be? Can we do props? Can you bet props? That's what it would be. Dame single-handedly made me cash last night. Yeah, Dame was fantastic. Seems like people played Romeo Langford in the chat, so that's good. I didn't play him, but I played Dame. So if you played Dame last night, you basically cashed out. Dame plus Jason Tatum is what the single entry landed on for the pay-ups. We will gladly take the combined 148 points. Ballers. Michael Porter finally came alive. Nothing was wrong with Michael Porter outside of the fact that he couldn't knock down shots. He finally came alive in a major way, obviously. I mean, overtime is going to help that. Couple overtime going to help that. Going to help every single player on that team. Your thoughts on Nato, Hill, or Richardson? No interest in Richardson for me personally. I can pull up some of these minutes right now, but no interest in Richardson for me personally. Hill looks okay. On the latest Patreon projection update, Hill looks like he will enter a player pool for me. I bumped him up to 20 minutes. I had him at 18 to start today. Still iffy on Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard is clearly going to be like the best value play on the slate, him and Gafford. But I don't know how secure those minutes are. Like, they chose to close with Ben Simmons at the 5 in that last game. I'm just not too sure how secure 30 minutes of play to Dwight Howard are today. So I have him at 20. But if you give him 22, 24, he'll start to look like the best play in the slate. Clearly looks fantastic. Clearly picking up a massive amount of ownership. So, like, when Dwight Howard on a 4-game slate starts to push 50% ownership, and you have like a pretty serious pivot that looks kind of just like him at 20% less ownership, and Daniel Gafford probably will play more minutes more times than not in this game, Daniel Gafford, than Howard. That's where I'm starting to try and find some leverage. Howard grades out well, all that stuff. But 50% ownership, if we're trying to get leverage somewhere, that seems like a decent piece to get leverage on, right? Either that or like a chalky Nicholas Batum can easily get away from that as well. But outside of that, Nato and Hill are very similar for me. I think I have Nato projected for more points, so more secure minutes. I have him at 24, and I have Hill at 20. You can see those minutes on the screen right now for Washington. Yeah, Nato, it's just not much there, right? He's going to continue to split with Ish Smith. Obviously, there's no Davis Bertans now. I think that just leads to insane minutes for Rui Hachimura. I think it allows Chandler Hutchinson to finally enter the rotation. I gave him a couple of minutes. But even if you don't think Chandler Hutchinson enters the rotation, you think it's insert player, Anthony Gill, who's a power forward, so I don't really think it'll be him. But Isaac Bonga, right? Any of these guys, it's really not going to matter. They're all going to split up scrub minutes. What's up, Sal? What's going on, Andrew? What's up, Sal? What's going on, sir, over on Twitter? How you doing? Romeo single-handedly won me cash games last night. Makes sense. He was cheap, and he almost 10x'd. Best value play under 5K. Best value play under 5K today. Right now, for me, the best value play under 5K is probably Daniel Gafford. I'll take Gafford over Howard, but it's pretty close. I've got Gafford for about 3 to 3.5 more points than Howard. If you give Howard more minutes, they'll look very similar, and Howard will be cheaper, so he will end up being the best value in that regard. But I'll take the ownership discount and similar projection on Daniel Gafford there, as I expect him to start again. Alex Len basically just didn't even play in that last game, played about 2 minutes. And now there's no Joel Embiid. So I'll take Gafford under 5K as my favorite guy below that. But outside of that, there's a lot of good options. I mean, Reggie Jackson's down there getting minutes, but Rui Hachimura is going to get big minutes. No Davis Bertans, already a guy during the regular season you can count on for 36 minutes. Wasn't really getting that in the postseason too much. Now you can expect that, in my opinion. So a lot of upside right now out of those fellas. I'm going to pull up the optimized air and see what some of these top lineups are starting to project out for. Randall night? I mean, tonight seems like the night to go Randall because I'm not on him that much. So I'm not really on Julius Randle too much personally. So this is some of the top projected lineups when I started to put some rules in. Nato and Ish eat up Bertans minutes? I don't think so. I mean, Nato and Ish are point guards, right? Maybe shooting guards. Bertans is a small forward, a stretch 3. So I think you see... I think you see Rui Hachimura just take on a massive minutes load like he did in that last game. Like Anthony Gill got a couple minutes here and there. Bonga entered the rotation for a couple minutes. Hutchinson maybe gets into a game if he's even healthy. That shirt looks like a soccer shirt. Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't really know what it's going for, but it does look like, what is it, Belgium's colors? Is that correct? I don't know. I'm trying to think back of when I played FIFA back in college. It looks like some NBA team as well, like one of their alternatives. I'm trying to think. I'm thinking of an NBA team. Maybe Houston Astros, but some NBA team out there I'm thinking of. Just got in Shake Milton tonight for cheap value in a tournament. If Shake Milton does not start tonight, there is no reason to play Shake Milton. Look, Shake Milton during the regular season sometimes would start when Embiid was out. Sometimes would start, actually, not even when Embiid was out, but more so like a Ben Simmons or Tobias Harris. Shake Milton, if you go on Add More Funds or one of these websites and you take Embiid off the court, Milton's going to look good. Why? Because Milton, most of his minutes anyways, come with Embiid off the court, right? And then he gets a couple more, and those minutes are extremely, extremely skewed. Why? Because when Embiid's off the court, normally maybe it's a blowout, and Simmons and Tobias Harris are off the court. Earlier this season, Embiid was injured, and so was Tobias Harris, and not even injured, actually. It was a whole COVID thing. The Sixers had like 6-7 dudes out, right? And Milton got a week or two of games there to just take on usage. Milton's not playing minutes, right? So we can't, I don't care if he's averaging 2 fantasy points per minute. If he's going to be projected out for 4 minutes of play, it's not doing anything for you. So if you see Shake Milton in the starting lineup tonight, which I don't expect, I expect it to be either Mike Scott, who started the second half of the game last time when Embiid was injured, or Dwight Howard. If Milton somehow starts, you can go to him, but I really don't expect that happen. I don't foresee that happening by any means. So, yeah, Milton's run for me today is at like 4 minutes of play. I don't expect to get there or really see anything. I mean, he played his least minutes in this series, 7 minutes last time out in a game where Embiid got hurt. So I don't really see where we're going to get minutes there. Anyone at $4,500 that you like today? Dwight Howard at $4,300 is your best guy at $4,500 or below. You can take Batum, but I mean, Howard and Batum are coming with a lot of chalk, but they're the only guys below $4,500 if you're not looking to just completely punt in the 3K range. Taj Gibson at 43 and Kleber at 43 would be other pivots, but nowhere near as good of plays. Been out of the game for a minute, usually like 800 to 1,000 in live streams. What am I missing, LOL? That's for NFL. This is NBA. NBA is a much less. So NFL live streams would usually be, depends. Showdown slates, yeah, around 800 to 1,500, sometimes 1,800 is what we got on one of the showdown slates last year. But this is the NBA. The NBA's interest from a fantasy and betting standpoint, one, because it's extremely hard to do, but two, compared to the NFL, is what you're seeing in the numbers right now in terms of people's interests. It's like 20% of people care about it. I think that's probably an accurate number, 20%, like 5 times more interest, maybe even a little bit higher. Maybe like 6 or 7 times more interest. Hey, Sal, favorite 3 SuperDraft plays today, says Braden Blaylock. SuperDraft plays for me today. Ben Simmons, Paul George, Westbrook, Kawhi, Derrick Rose are my top 5 projected. Rose's multiplier is just too good, 1.55x. Expect him to have a little bit of a, maybe not even betting shooting night. He shot fine, like 7 to 15 in that last game, but just overall involvement night. Luka and Batum or Connolly and Valanciunas. I will take Luka and Batum. Maxey get any run today? I believe I have Maxey at not much run. I have Maxey right now at 15 minutes of play. Not enough for me to go there. Can you show your top plays? They're the same as they were earlier today, which is this. Let's go to double box. Top 6 plays are right here, same as they were earlier today. Actually, Rui Hachimura has Rui Hachimura jumped in there? Let me see. So I'll pull up these new ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Rui Hachimura has jumped in at number 6. So a little bit of movement there. A little bit of movement in general. But this is also taking into account what we talked about earlier. Like, these are not my top 7 yeses because Dwight Howard's in there. I don't have him as a yes. Ownership doesn't really make me want to go there all the way yet. So these would be the top 6 if we just take into account yeses. So those are the top 6 guys that I like today. Right now, actually, I have, for this 4-game slate, 15 guys as yeses. I have a pretty massive player pool that's going to have to get shrunk. 45 guys in a player pool. That's not terrible for 150s for a 4-game slate. Maybe like 5 guys too high. Sal, top 2 on Prize Picks. Yeah, the sponsor of the L program today. These are my favorite props, not fantasy related. The fantasy ones we got in the morning. The fantasy props are basically all finite now. If you didn't get it, if you weren't able to take advantage of the 4 fantasy props in the morning, and they have now changed significantly, like Donovan Mitchell, like John Morant by 2, 2.5, 1.5 points, there's not much left in the fantasy streets. But these are the props that I think are the best in the prop street, and they're still out there. Under 8 on Mike Connolly and over 7.5 real life points on Ingles, and under 8 projected assists with Donovan Mitchell back. I'll take the under on that Mike Conley. I got him in the high 6s. If you want to tail that one, you can check it out down below on Prize Picks, the sponsor of the program today. These are top 6. Any interest in NATO? He's in a player pool. Yeah, not a lot of interest, but he's in there. I stacked Jokic and Dame last night. Rest of my lineup was trash besides Covington. Damn. I mean, you got the 2 big guys when it's overtime. They probably put up, I don't even know how many points combined for you. Like 160, 170. Do you think Morris is a pivot to Batum, even though he cost a little bit more today? I think Morris is a pivot to Batum today. He's a potential pivot. 23.6 fantasy points for Morris. I've got Batum. Batum's a little bit cheaper, $300 cheaper at 22.7. So yeah, I mean, there's so many 4K guys today. I mean, the slate's gonna be one in the 4K range. Whether it's, I mean, we can just scroll through how many guys in the 4K range are interesting to me today. The guys up top that make a lot of sense: Gafford, Rui Hachimura, Reggie Jackson, Dwight Howard, DeAndre Hunter. That's 5 guys right there that I think are pretty interesting, right? But then you have a ton more. Like the 4K range is where you're going to win the slate today. Nicholas Batum, Danny Green, Seth Curry, Marcus Morris, Rondo, Dorian Finney-Smith, Kleber, Taj Gibson, right? We can keep going. Reggie Bullock, Gallo to an extent. Thibault or Korkmaz, I think that I'll take Korkmaz. Thibault gets there just from, I mean, there's a better chance Thibault plays more minutes, but I'll take Korkmaz, point per minute production. So thanks for what you do and the positivity, says Demetrius. Thanks, I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Who's the number 1 lock on 100K with 1 entry today? Yeah, there's not a single lock on this slate. Tobias Harris would be the closest thing to a lock. The Tobias Harris / Ben Simmons combo. I'll take Harris $300 cheaper. He would be my favorite play in the slate. Anything from the New York game today? So in New York today, I would say Derrick Rose is my favorite option, but he's not even that much of a priority. Derrick Rose is my highest ranking Nick today as my 17th overall play. So if you're specifically talking on the Derrick Rose side, if you're looking on the Atlanta side, actually it's not that great either. Atlanta, my highest ranked guy is DeAndre Hunter, who I actually like as a really nice play. I'd actually prefer him to Marcus Morris today. Getting big minutes, played 30-plus minutes in that last game, and subbed out early due to the blowout. He's my number 20 overall play. So I would rank it Derrick Rose, RJ Barrett, Hunter today as my interest from that team. Thoughts on Seth Curry and Rondo? Yeah, Rondo's going to play minutes. I probably have him above the industry today at around 24 minutes. He's going to play minutes. He's going to play minutes as long as it's not an insane blowout and they can actually benefit from his defense being on the court. I prefer Seth Curry, though. Seth Curry will be a little bit owned, and we can start to talk about some leverage plays because Curry's going to be a little bit higher owned. I still prefer him to Rondo, though. But like guys that do give me a little bit of pause today would be Dwight Howard and Nicholas Batum's crazy ownership, especially Batum. Like I get why Howard's there. He's a good point per minute producer, 1.19 on the season. If you could just see 20-plus minutes against a Washington team with not many centers, he can pretty easily get you at 4,300, 24, 26, 28 fantasy points, right? So I see why he's there. I get it. The only reason I'm pausing is because of the ownership. Nicholas Batum, though, is getting minutes, but he's $4,300 on a slate where I just told you about 10 other guys who look equal or better to him and are going to be nowhere near as owned. I mean, outside of a couple of them will be similar ownership, but a lot of them will be lower owned today, whether it's a DeAndre Hunter. So, like, give me a 12% on DeAndre Hunter compared to a 25% on half the ownership of a Nicholas Batum today. So, I mean, that's the type of leverage play that I'm okay to go to. I'll take Danny Green over Seth Curry today if he's going to be 15% less owned is what I'm seeing right now. So those are some leverage options. Luka's not going to be owned today, which is an interesting thing to look at. I mean, it seems like he's battling through somewhat of an injury, but that's interesting. But yeah, I think there's a lot of leverage in like the value and low ownership of a guy who I already liked this morning in DeAndre Hunter. Other guys who can bounce back with some leverage in an elimination game, Derrick Rose, probably the best player on the Knicks right now. Not even close in this series. He's the best player on the Knicks. Any interest in Grayson Allen? Grayson Allen today, let's see. Allen would probably be my favorite 3K play. I got him at 19.8 fantasy points. Continues to play big minutes. Continues to get shots. Bertans is out, correct. Rui been getting minutes. Rui got big minutes last game. That was about it, though. He got minutes during the regular season, but with Bertans out, I expect that to continue. Thoughts on Anderson? Meh. Give me Dylan Brooks from that team and some other guys. Any Triple J love? I'm always going to be higher than the field on Triple J because I project him for like 28 to 30 minutes when most people project in the foul trouble, which, yes, it does happen once every third game or so. But I'll give him 28. I think I have it 29 minutes today. And it makes Jaren Jackson Jr. for me today as a yes at 29.99 fantasy points. Gafford's a good play, no Embiid. Yes, Gafford's my number 2 overall ranked play behind Tobias Harris today. Randall is straight buns this series. Yeah, I don't know if it's a combination of him playing 40 minutes every game during the regular season and just being tired now when the intensity has to pick up, or the fact that he is a comeback player of the year and not an elite superstar, even though this season was very good for him. When you play 40 minutes a game, a lot of the accounting numbers will look pretty good. Hachimura ownership high tonight. Rui Hachimura's ownership, you should expect it to be relatively high. I would expect it to be 30 plus on a 4-game slate. Sally went 4-0 on Prize Picks last night to Chingaruski. Yes, we did. We had a nice night. Had a nice night on the Prize Picks and in the DFS sheets. We didn't even need. I mean, Romeo Langford I was not on in single entry, was not on in 3-max, had barely any overall, and it didn't really matter. A profitable night all across the board. Mainly because, I mean, if you had Damian Lillard's 93 points and just a decent rest of your lineup, you probably did pretty well last night. Not even factoring in having another 50-plus guy like a Tatum. Or maybe you were lucky enough to have a Jokic or a Harden in there for their 70 burgers. Why were you so low on Romeo Langford yesterday? He's a very bad basketball player. He averages 0.55 fantasy points per minute. That was the best game that he's had on the season by a large margin, right? And that stuff's going to happen. Like, these guys will have nice shooting games. But Romeo Langford on the season is averaging, we can pull up Boston. He's averaging, even after last night, 0.52 fantasy points per minute. Even if you gave Romeo Langford 40 minutes of play tonight or last night, that would barely get him to 20 fantasy points. And he clearly wasn't going to play 40 minutes, right? Like, give him 30 minutes of play. On average, Romeo Langford scores last night 15.6 fantasy points. When you pick up 8 points from steals and blocks for a guy who's not known for steals and blocks, like, at all, I think he has on the season, let's see. He averages less than 1 steal and block per game. So he had 8 total in that game, right? That's where the outlier starts to come in. He shoots from 3, or he shoots from the field 42%. Like, this is a very, obviously a young basketball player. I believe he's not a rookie, but he was drafted last year, if I recall correctly. The John Morant draft, maybe a year before. But I believe he's a second-year player, maybe third. So, yeah, obviously there's room to grow, but when you shoot 40% from the field, oof, 0.52 fantasy point per minute producer. New York gameplays, Derrick Rose. I'd probably go Derrick Rose, Hunter, and really that's it. If you really wanted to get more, that's where you can start to get into the RJ Barretts and Alec Burks. Nato or Hill today? I'll take, Nato's going to get more minutes. I think Hill has more upside for a higher minute ceiling because Nato's issue is Westbrook and Beal are going to play 42 minutes in an elimination game. Ish Smith is still in the court. All that's left for Nato at most is like 24 minutes, right? Where at least George Hill can play a little bit more run. You're not getting the guards and Danny Green and Seth Curry to play 40 minutes. They're going to play 30. So I think Hill has more upside from a minute standpoint. I think Nato is the safer option. Boban sneaky play tonight? Nah. Did you end up changing your picks on Prize Picks? No, we took the 4 ones this morning. Hope some of them have changed. I think all of them. And then this is one that I placed earlier. So Prize Picks is the sponsor of the program. It's just props. So if you want to take any props, over-unders, you can check it out. It's linked down below. If you use the code SAL, S-A-L, they sponsor the program. Encourage you to try it out, S-A-L. Use that code. Any money you put in, they'll double it up to $100 Rooskies. It's a ton of fun. It simplifies the way that you play DFS. And look, getting lineups, making lineups is fun, but like tomorrow's a 2-game slate. Just nowhere near as fun. 4-game slates are good. We're happy with today. 2-game slate tomorrow, and then like 2 and 3-game slates for the next week or two until showdown slates in July for the finals. This is where a lot of my action is going to start to shift towards is props. Props that we think we can beat. Mike Connolly under 8 projected assists. Joe Ingles over 7.5 projected points. If you're not talking about the fantasy props, we took 4 this morning. This is 5 and 6 now overall total. The fantasy props this morning are already in. If they've moved, I probably wouldn't take them. If they've moved significantly by a point, 2.5 points, these ones are still good if you want to try them out. A lot of people asking about Seth Curry. It's just the same guy, I think. I mean, Seth Curry is going to be highly owned today. He looks fine. I would pivot to Danny Green for the ownership discount. I would pivot to DeAndre Hunter and all these guys for discounts. He's going to play fine. There's no Embiid, so a little bit more usage goes around from a production standpoint. Do you like Russ today? Russell Westbrook for me is my number 11 overall play. I do like Russ a good amount. He's my highest projected play. Should really not shock anybody today. I have Russell Westbrook for 5 points more than anybody else in the slate. That guy in second will be Luka Doncic. If your name is not Luka Doncic today, I have Russell Westbrook for 10 points more than anybody on the slate. It is not a 3-game slate. It is not a 2-game slate, so that doesn't matter as much, but it's still a small slate relative to the 8 to 12 game slates we were getting during the regular season, like every fucking night. So 10 points higher than anybody on the slate not named Luka in a median projection is clearly meaningful. So No Embiid, so easier to get to the rim for Russell Westbrook. Yeah, I like Russ yet again today. The problem is if you take out Luka and you just jump down to the next highest price guy, which is Kawhi at $9,600, that's an $1,800 price difference. But we have all these 4K options. So, yeah, I feel pretty comfortable going with Russ. I'm going to try and prioritize him in my single entry lineups today. And then, I mean, you could play a Russ and then just go right down to Tobias and Ben Simmons. In a playoff game, should play 38-plus minutes, should both average close to 1.2-plus fantasy points per minute, and both should be touching 50 fantasy points on average. Not every time, on average, right? So when that happens, those guys are in the 7K, low 8K range. You could play a Russ, and there's endless amounts of 4K options. You don't even have to dip into the 3K range today. I know it might be appealing to play a Grayson Allen or a Korkmaz or any of these guys, but you don't have to go down there. There's like 10 to 12 very viable 4K options today. You play 2 to 3 of those guys, and then you can basically play whoever else you want on the slate. Hit that thumbs up. Yeah, hit it for sure. Hit it for sure. Do you follow anyone who focuses more on the betting aspect? For NBA, I mean, I'm sure there's people out there. I don't follow it. So might not seem like this is maybe not true, but I did a podcast with Rick Gaiman from Rick Run Good Golf. He's going to be releasing that. We talked about just being companies of one, betting in this or in the betting space and just content in general. I don't follow any content in this space, like none. There's a couple of podcasts, whether it's like PFF that I listen to every so often, but I do my own research. It keeps me, I would say, baselined, like not just taking other people's takes. I don't listen. I listen to like comedy podcasts and things like that. Sometimes like not new world news podcasts, but like financial type podcasts. So yeah, I mean, I do this stuff like all day, so I definitely don't. So I wouldn't know the correct answers there, but my guess is that not a lot of guys are covering the betting aspect of this, just because not a lot of people cover betting in general. They're not well educated, even if you're like the sports anchors on TVs all the time. They're not well educated in how to even fluently talk about betting lines, how to talk about reverse line movement in general, how to actually transparently tell you that you're not going to win on NBA betting lines, not props. You'll win on any sport in props right now. I mean, the books don't know how to properly adjust, and that's why they limit people and give you ceilings on what you could bet. But if you're trying to bet NBA straight lines, and this is what I've been preaching all year, like you're trying to bet the spread on today's game, especially an hour before the game starts, not even, you're going to lose. Maybe you don't lose today, maybe you get lucky, but you're going to lose long term. NBA lines are so tight. Brick75 posted earlier this year something that I've heard about the last 3 years and been looking into. It's just like even the professionals are barely breaking even at best. So it's kind of a waste of time to go fully into it. Obviously, you're not a professional. You're betting for fun. So if you have any takes that you need, I can help you out on the betting for fun. But if you're like trying to actually make money or see a return on your profits, I would bet on sites like Prize Picks for props, DFS, where it's peer-to-peer. There's actually game theory involved there, right? Props are the softer action. And NFL, I think you could beat the closing lines. Maybe not long-term consistently for 10 years, but you can have a 1 to 2 to 3 winning seasons if you're getting in properly and beating the closing lines. And the NBA, it is so damn tough to beat closing lines because they really don't adjust. They kind of just open up correctly. Hey, Sal, who do you like more when it comes to ownership? Luka, Leonard, or Westbrook today? Let's actually see how those guys are looking in the ownerships. Westbrook looks like he'll be around 20%. Leonard around 20%. Luka around... So Luka's going to be the lowest owned by a decent amount, maybe like 8%. I'll still take Westbrook. Tyrese Maxey going to start. Is that true? Is that what we believe? Is that what was announced? I mean, if he's going to start, I'll update it, but maybe they go with a Ben Simmons at center like they closed out that last game. I'd have to see it to believe it. I don't think it makes sense to start Mike Scott. He started the second half of the last game, but I don't think it makes sense to start him. He stinks. But Mike Scott, Dwight Howard make the most sense. They could go small. I think it would make more sense to start Shake Milton than a Tyrese Maxey. If you were to go that route and like go Ben Simmons or Tobias Harris at the 5 again, I think they could do it against this Washington team. It kind of depends on who Washington starts. If they start Gafford again, you could go Ben Simmons or Tobias Harris at the 5 and just start positionless, which is a weird experiment to try in a playoff game. Just close the series out, right? So I think they play it safe with one of those other guys. But I would start Milton over Maxey just because, I mean, this is the playoffs. Like Tyrese Maxey, sure, rookie. He looked good in some times when he was the only guy on the team when the entire team got COVID earlier this year. But Milton is, one, more of a veteran, two, been on this team for 2 years and playing with these guys for 2 years and actually been in the rotation with guys like Simmons and Harris. And there's something to that. Like as much as we want to just think that you slot guys into a position and they just play their role and they don't care about anybody else on the team, I mean, that's clearly not true. And you saw that with the Lakers. The Lakers, for the first time all season, started the lineup that they started yesterday. For whatever reason, they didn't start Marc Gasol at center and put LeBron at the 4. They put Markieff Morris at the 4. That was the first time all season ever that those 5 players started a game ever in their careers. Not just on the Lakers, obviously. LeBron not been on the team with these other guys, just in general, ever. And you do it in a playoff game. So, like, the actual continuity, you talk about continuity of teams and, and how they all gel, that matters. That really does matter. Like trusting a guy's going to be in a certain place, having a good feel for where guys are in the fast break, right? So I would think that if you're going to go to a guard in a small lineup, you got to go to Milton, if anything. I just don't think they'll do either. Morant and Mitchell or Simmons in cash. Simmons in cash. I mean, Simmons and Tobias Harris, insert them into your cash lineups. I mean, your cash lineup should probably start today. Simmons, Tobias Harris, and Russell Westbrook. And figure the rest out. Go Gafford or Howard and just figure the rest out. Is DeAnthony Melton a top play? No. DeAnthony Melton closed out that last game. They needed offense. He played a lot more minutes than he really is ever going to play in a series. If they're in a situation where they need offense and they're down in a blowout yet again, right? I mean, that game got a little bit out of hand. So if you want to play for the blowout, fine. I have him at 18 minutes. He's not fully out of play, but I'm not there. Grayson Allen or Nato. Grayson Allen, higher minutes floor, higher minutes ceiling. Thoughts on Seth Curry, Rondo, and Mitchell today? Yeah, totally different price points. I like Mitchell a lot. I'm going to be well above the field. I took his props. I have Mitchell for like 45 fantasy points. I took his overs in the betting markets this morning when he was at 40 fantasy points on Prize Picks. So I'm going to be a little bit over the field on Mitchell. The problem is, like, how do I fit Mitchell in today, right? He'll be lower owned. Like, Mitchell will be definitely lower owned than Simmons and Tobias Harris. But how do I fit him in? Like, he's not going to be 10% owned like he was last time out. Like, if you're going to tell me that today Ben Simmons will come in at like 30% ownership and Mitchell's 20, just give me Ben Simmons and no Embiid, right? So Mitchell is not like a great leverage play today. I think he gets his 36 minutes, but it's just how do I fit him into a single entry lineup? It's easy to fit him into 20 or 150 max. You're going to get exposure, and let's actually see what the big energy optimizer is spitting out right now. Early ownership on Donovan Mitchell, big energy optimizer. You can check it out down below. My early ownership is 25%, which is, let's pull this up right now. So early ownership is 25%. And I say early ownership, but the games start pretty soon. That's about the field. I think Mitchell comes in around 20 or 25%. So that's pretty close to where we're seeing the field at right now. Thibault or Korkmaz? If I had to pick one, Korkmaz, but there's a really good chance he plays less minutes than Thibault. It's just that if he does get equal to greater minutes, I think you have a greater chance going with a Korkmaz's point per minute upside. Can I pivot from Rose to Bogdan from Atlanta? Yeah. Horder or Brunson today? Oof, both brutal, but I'll go just Brunson, just more offense. Mitchell or Morant? Give me Morant. Your favorite center other than Gafford today? Yeah, I mean, the best center other than Gafford, if we're just going to exclude Dwight Howard from the conversation, just because he looks good, you know, my stance on him, he's highly owned. I'd rather pivot away in larger field stuff. And this is why, like, Dwight Howard is picking up ownership. There's not that many good centers in the slate today. Center eligible players like a Jaren Jackson Jr. would probably be my next favorite option. But he's actually no. But Jaren Jackson Jr., I think he lost his center eligibility. So my rankings for center today are Gafford, Howard, Gobert, Valanciunas, Capella, and Zubac. So yeah, you kind of fall into Dwight Howard there if you're going to pivot away from Gafford or you're going to play him with somebody else. You just fall into him, especially when you take into account the price points. Jonas Valanciunas will be a leverage play, though, today. People are going to go to Morant on his own team in the exact same price point. You're going to have Tobias Harris, Donovan Mitchell, and Ben Simmons picking up ownership. I know Valanciunas has not played well. He's facing one of the defensive players of the year right up there with Ben Simmons and Rudy Gobert, as he is most weeks. Probably be like 15% owned. Westbrook projection. I've got Westbrook for 60 points and change today. Let's see my exact. 60.5 points. Do you think Hunter gets minutes with a sore knee? Rather go Gallinari? I think he's fine, as long as he's probably fine. Play Harrison, Simmons together. I think that's okay to do. Yep. What's a good play at $5,200 or under for your utility? And if you guys are wondering, that this thing that's on the screen right now, this is the Big Energy Optimizer. You can get it on Patreon. No better time than the beginning of the year. You can get really advanced by setting up groups. If I have this guy in my lineup, don't give me this guy. It's good for centers. Like today, if you wanted to say, if I'm playing Daniel Gafford, don't play Robin Lopez. And you might be saying, I would never play Robin Lopez. But if you're crunching out 20 to 150 lineups, the optimizer might give you your 149th lineup with a Robin Lopez in it, right? As a pivot play for a guy who's going to play 18 minutes, right? But yeah, a lot of cool things you can do in here. You can obviously control unique, salary, randomness, ownership, total lineup ownership, all that type of stuff. So yeah, you can check it out. I'll link it right now. Beginning of the month, get your budgets in order. Get up in there over on Patreon. Link down below. Appreciate all the people supporting over on Patreon, making this enterprise spin, spin, spin. Kleber or Gibson? Kleber. Batum or Morris? I'll take Morris for the cheaper, lower ownership. Are there any good leverage plays on this slate? Yeah, I think DeAndre Hunter. Like there's leverage in the values today because there's so many 4K guys. I'm just going to take. They all project out pretty close for me outside of the centers and Gafford and Dwight Howard. So I'll take the leverage guys, like leveraging off of Seth Curry with Danny Green, leveraging to DeAndre Hunter. I think John Morant. Like John Morant, Kristoff, and Luka. Kristoff's playing terribly right now. Still somewhat fine on defense. But John Morant is a leverage play that I'm interested in right now. Like if we're talking leverage plays, guys who are loaned who can get you 40, 50 points at their decent price points, yeah. I'll go with kind of John Morant being that guy for me today. John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., these guys are kind of the leverage plays. I continue to like Jaren Jackson Jr. a good amount. Not going to pick up ownership because he gets in foul trouble and people think he's not playing minutes when he's going to play 30-plus minutes. Jaren Jackson Jr. or Barrett last minute. Jaren Jackson Jr. is a riskier play because of foul trouble, but he's the answer. My man, crushing the projection, says Ian. Thanks, I appreciate that, boss man. Optimize with a little randomness, please. Yeah, no, this is all. That was all optimized with randomness. Yeah, this is all randomness, my man, Paul. These crunches are not cash crunches. These crunches have 21% randomness and 2 uniques on them. Yeah, you can see Korkmaz is popping up a ton. We're gonna have to see what happens here because like Korkmaz is a risky option today to get that much of. I don't think I'm gonna get that much of Korkmaz because I'm giving Korkmaz, who obviously is not playing many minutes in the series, I'm giving him 18 minutes in this game. He's really not that appealing to me. So Korkmaz is just seeming like a clear punt and hoping that he gets 18 or 20 points. You can see him going to Grayson Allen, which I feel comfortable about. Korkmaz is going to have to be one that I look back into. DeAndre Hunter, we're about double the field on, which I just mentioned. Mike Conley will be above the field on. Looks like Conley's not picking up much ownership. Rose will be above the field on. Westbrook is going to be somebody who pops up in my single entry lineups. I'll kind of force him in there more so than the optimizer will because of his price point. So Westbrook's right now in my single entry lineup. I'm excited for the slate because I think Friday we could have a 4-game slate. Let me look up the NBA schedule. Friday we could have a 4-game slate, but it depends on a couple of these teams that are down 3-1 to win today. So Friday would be the next Clippers-Mavs game, which they definitely need to play when they're tied 2-2. But yeah, the Knicks, 76ers, and Jazz. So there's a chance we only have 1 game on Friday if all these series get cleaned up today, which just stinks because now we're getting to the point where it's just 2-game series, which is fine because it's better basketball, better teams playing each other. Hopefully Embiid is not done with that meniscus. Top center plays today. Gafford, Dwight Howard, Gobert, Valanciunas, and Capella in that order. Noel or Gibson? Give me Gibson. Bro, your camera is way too good. Plus your glasses are too clean. The reflection is killing me. Yeah, well, it's not even... It's the reflection not off the camera. It's off of... I have a ring light behind. I've got 2 lights on my desk, a ring light, 2 studio lights in the corners, an overhead light, a backlight, and then obviously all the other lights you see. Where's Kawhi in ownership? He'll probably be around 20-25% owned. Do you like Simmons' assists or points and Westbrook's assists? I don't have a stance on Westbrook's assists. Somebody asked that in the Discord earlier. Wasn't something that looked that appealing to me. You want to know Simmons assists? Simmons, I would take, what is his prop at? Is it 7, 7.5? I'm seeing 7, 7.5, 8. If it's at 7 or 7.5, I would take the over on Simmons assists, and I would feel not great, but decent about it. Simmons points, I don't like because they've already come up in the marketplaces. Like, if you could still find a Simmons over-under at 16 points, smash it. But most of them have come up to like 17 to 18 by now. Simmons or Tobias, if I had to pick one, Tobias, but I think the answer might be both, but Tobias if I had to pick one. Is Howard starting and is Tobias a must-play? Tobias is not a must-play, but I like him a lot. Howard is not officially starting yet. We don't know the starters. Mike Scott started the second half. Howard is obviously the direct replacement at center. They can go small ball because this is not a big team with Washington at all. John Collins at the 4 is not that scary, right? It's a little bit bigger when Hunter plays at 3. You're talking about like 3 through 5. But, yeah, I mean, it makes sense for Howard to start. We'll see what happens. I'm only giving him 20 minutes right now. If he starts, I think I would have to bump him up to 22 or 24, which just makes him look like a better play. But Howard already looks good. He's 50% owned. You take the chance on if you want to play that ownership, ride with that ownership or not. What's your picks on SuperDraft today? Yeah, I mean, I have some top plays. All the SuperDraft projections, they're doing like $2,000 to first tournaments. Again, I would encourage you to check it out. Link down below to get into those contests over on SuperDraft. They just don't fill. But I've got a lot of guys I like on SuperDraft. We have all the interests and all the priorities and projections over on Patreon. Like Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, like all the obvious guys, the big names, Paul, Donovan Mitchell, right? Some ways to get a little bit different. Derrick Rose, known as Valanciunas, to get a little bit different. Straight projection, though, Derrick Rose has the best high multiplier, 1.55x, to really just get there, even if he has a not-so-great game. But Valanciunas at 1.35x. And Dylan Brooks is somebody on DraftKings, keeps playing big minutes, staying out of foul trouble. Dylan Brooks, 1.55x multiplier in SuperDraft looks good. Like him on DraftKings, too. Can you show top plays again? Yeah. I mean, these are top 6 as of now. Dwight Howard will be in there. He's just not a yes yet. Best $55 option other than Hunter. I mean, Hunter's well below $5,500, so I don't think he's the best option down there. I mean, that's like $1,000 difference. Daniel Gafford is my favorite guy below $5,500 today. Top point guards today. Top point guards today for me will be Ben Simmons, Donovan Mitchell, Russell Westbrook, Connolly, Derrick Rose, Ja Morant. The nice leverage plays today at point guard are definitely going to be Ja Morant and Connolly. Derrick Rose will be decently owned. Westbrook won't be as highly owned as he should be because of the price point and all the other studs. So my favorite point guards, though, are probably in this order. Those are based on my projections. Like, based on median projections, Simmons, Mitchell, point per dollar wise, Westbrook, punt if you want to with like NATO, Mike Conley. My favorite ones, though, are probably going to be coming in as Westbrook, Simmons, Morant, Mitchell, Conley. You can throw Rose at the end of that. Those are like the guys I like more. When you're factoring in ownership, when you're factoring in total points upside, price, all that stuff. Leverage. What's up, Sal? What game do you think will have the highest total today? Yeah, whichever one Vegas thinks. Highest total today, 229.5, Philadelphia versus Washington. But team total, Utah is a similar team total to Philadelphia. They're just a wider spread of 9.5. Dwight doesn't like to start. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really started many games. Usually they'll go with like a spot start in these situations. Earlier in the year, it was Tony Bradley. He's gone. Mike Scott sometimes. With Tony Bradley out, it makes it a little bit easier for him to go in, though. Gallo projection. My Gallinari projection today is 20.3 points. Not great. Howard and Mitchell, somebody says. Okay. Thoughts on Morant? He'll be low owned, and I like the leverage, yeah. It's just trying to fit him in. It's the same exact analysis for Donovan Mitchell. Like, if I'm playing in 150s, I'm going to be over the field than Morant. I'm going to be about double the field than him. But on a single entry lineup today, like, Westbrook looks fantastic. You would have to go to one of the Philly guys, Tobias Harris or Simmons. I lean Tobias Harris if you wanted to get like in a Morant just based on the price point, right? Without punting in a couple of spots. Howard and Mitchell or Curry and Gobert. I mean, Ryan Posner, just relax, my guy. Howard and Mitchell or Curry and Gobert. Howard and Mitchell. I keep saying J-Val's due for a big game, and he keeps letting me down. Yeah, I mean, he's just facing the best defensive center in the NBA. But yeah, he's always... I mean, he's playing the minutes to be able to. Thank you. Much easier to watch now. I had to pause, somebody said. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means, my man. Oh, with the glasses? There you go, yeah. Top punt play, probably Grayson Allen. Other than like Furkan Korkmaz, if you're really trying to get crazy. Scott or Thibault? Neither. If Scott starts, you can go there, but like I have Scott for 11 fantasy points. Doesn't look great. I guess if you're asking for one, I'll give you an answer. I've got Thibault at 9.6 fantasy points and Mike Scott at 11.3. So Scott, but both of them are duds. Brooks or Barrett? Give me Brooks. Where's Kawhi's ownership at? Probably around 20-25%. O'Neal, Green, or Ingles today? Give me Green. Do you like Shake? Only if he starts. Otherwise, I don't think Shake plays. Like I don't know why people think Shake's going to play. He played 7 minutes in the last game. He's like barely topping 10 minutes a game in this series. Joel Embiid being out a center, it does not really affect Shake Milton getting into the game, right? If Shake starts, right, and they go small ball with Tobias or Simmons at the 5, which I don't expect, but if that was to happen, then yeah, play Shake. You expect 20-plus minutes, but otherwise, no. Projections for Finney Smith and Hunter. Yeah, I like Hunter. Finney Smith just playing massive minutes to be in a player pool. Finney Smith 23.38 on Patreon today, and Hunter at 23.8. So I'll take Hunter. Hunter also has just more of a ceiling. Finney Smith is pretty, like, his range of outcomes is pretty secure around that spot. So, yes. We have a Philadelphia Sixers not lineup today. DeAndre Hunter available to play. George Hill. Seth Curry available. We have Matisse Thybulle is starting for Joel Embiid. All right. So, yeah, I mean, not much changes. Not much interest in Matisse Thybulle. So, yeah, not much changes. It'll be interesting to see, though, like, are they going Tobias at the 5 or Simmons? It makes more sense to go Tobias, so we'll see. But, yeah, Matisse Thybulle starting does not change much for me. Matisse Thybulle starting, if you liked the Romeo Langford 1 in 100, I mean, like 10xing yesterday, then Matisse Thybulle is your guy. Matisse Thybulle is actually a little bit better of a fantasy point per minute producer, right? Like, he's like a 0.65 fantasy point producer, not 0.5 like Langford was. So Thybulle is not completely out of play, but before this, I had Thybulle at, I also don't know how many minutes he's really going to play. Like, Thybulle probably doesn't play 30 minutes, right? Like, he's going to start. They're going to have Korkmaz in there. So I had Thybulle at 14 minutes before that. Even if I give Thybulle 10 more minutes, which seems high, that gets him to about 16 fantasy points for me. And that's if I give him 24 to 25 minutes. So at $3,000 flat, you can punt with him. Yeah, you can punt with Matisse Thybulle today starting, but do not get your hopes up. Do not think that he's a lock by any means. He is somebody that more times than not, if he plays 25 minutes, will score less than around 15 fantasy points and change. The more times that he's on the court, though, is the more opportunity for his best skill set, steals and blocks, defense, right? That is his game, his defense, to be out there. But I would not expect this to mean that Matisse Thybulle is now playing 30 minutes. I would expect still a rotation with a Korkmaz, still a rotation with, if they play Shake Milton 5 or 6 minutes, right? Meaning that he probably tops out around 25 minutes, unless somehow he's shooting well, which Matisse Thybulle is not known for shooting. He's known for literally going out there and doing one thing, playing defense. Very Frank Ntilikina-esque, for those of you that are young enough to remember a couple weeks ago when Frank Ntilikina got 10 days ago or so, not even a week, Trae Young'd on his face in his 1 minute of play. I'll update the projections, by the way, for the news on the starting lineup. We could actually upload. Let me just do this right now. Actually, Matisse Thybulle, I'll probably give 25 minutes of play. So let's go through it. So now Dwight Howard, right? The 50% on Dwight Howard does not look, as we've kind of been all day on him, maybe not totally there on him. Let's start to update these minutes now. Most of these guys are going to stay the same. But let's go through and start to update the minutes. These top four are going to stay the same. Dwight Howard, I had at 20 minutes. He's going to stay at 20 minutes, as I was kind of projecting to come off the bench. Like Tyrese Maxey is still going to be in the rotation, so there's that. Mike Scott, instead of 18 minutes since he's not starting, I was kind of waiting to see if it's him or Howard. It's neither. We'll go down to Scott to like 6. He might not even be in the rotation anymore. We'll go George Hill still at 20. That looks decent. Shake Milton will give a little bit more run. Gary Clark, these guys will be out. Yeah, so I'll give Thybulle 25 minutes. It'll put him in a rotation or in a player pool for me, but not great. Now Korkmaz is not going to be as interesting as Thybulle draws a start. I'll give Korkmaz 12 or 14 minutes of play. Kawhi and Hill or Tobias and Reggie. Thybulle won't play long. Howard will play longer. I think Thybulle more times than not plays longer than Howard now. Look, Howard played like no minutes in that last game. If Joel Embiid wasn't as good as he is and dominant, like the Sixers wouldn't keep a center on the court against this Washington team, right? Porzingis last piece in, that's fine. What about Danny Green? I came in late. What's his projection? It's not as great, but he's not going to pick up massive ownership, so he's okay. I got him at 31 minutes. I got Danny Green today. Danny Green today for 25.3 fantasy points. If you are a patron, I am updating the projections right now to shoot out to you before the game starts for the change. It's not going to change too many of these guys. Just a couple of them. Like Mike Scott is nowhere to be found. Like if you got the under 14 fantasy points or 13 fantasy points earlier in the day on Mike Scott, there's a chance he doesn't even play today. So that would just be music to our ears. That would be absolutely fantastic. Also, with Danny Green and Seth Curry and some of these other guys playing alongside a low producer in Thybulle, that obviously helps Thybulle even more. So let's see the updated projections on Thybulle now. I now have Matisse Thybulle at... Thybulle now checks in for me at 16.7 fantasy points, which at $3,000 flat is more than capable of putting into your lineups, allows you to afford those pay-up options much, much easier. Tyrese Maxey goes on to 8.7 points. I have Shake Milton barely in the rotation now. If you want to see the exact projections and all that stuff, especially when there is updates needed like just now, you can head over to Patreon and sign up over there. What do you think of Howard under on Prize Picks? I don't know what it's at. I've got Howard for... Let me just upload this quick. I've got Howard right now for, nothing changes because I wasn't expecting a start, 23.6, or at least not a full-on start. Thybulle starting. Yes, Thybulle starting doesn't shake much up. If you want to punt with Thybulle at $3,000 flat, it's okay. But his range of outcomes is very low since he relies a lot on defensive scoring. So like 16.7 fantasy points, there's not really much room for like a 30-point performance. New lineups question mark? I don't think you have to like rework your lineups for the Thybulle stuff. Would you prefer Gibson or Howard? Howard. Bogdanovich or Brooks? Brooks. Thybulle or Nato today? Give me Nato. Nato's more expensive. It depends on what that extra money gets you. If that extra money gets you somebody you really like a Russell Westbrook on the upside, then go Thybulle. But Nato will be the higher scorer way more times. It just depends on what the salary gets you. Mitchell and Grayson Allen or Connolly and Rui? I will go with Connolly and Rui. Best plays in the 5 to 6K range today. Jaren Jackson Jr. probably my favorite play in that range right now. And then it's kind of a dead range. RJ Barrett's in that range. 6K range is just a dead range. Dylan Brooks. Actually, I'll go Jaren Jackson Jr. and Dylan Brooks in that range. A couple of leverage pieces too. Bullock worth a look today? Yes. Thybulle is starting. Does that change your projections? Slightly. We just updated them, yeah. Any thought on Tim Hardaway Jr.? Tim Hardaway Jr. probably should not get paid from this team after this year since he's going to demand a lot of money. Tim Hardaway Jr. playing massive minutes when the games don't play out. Tim Hardaway Jr. had the first 2 games of the series were rather good, especially game 2. Shot 6 of 8 from 3, 5 of 9 the game before that. Hardaway Jr. 29.07 fantasy points at $5,700. Give me Dylan Brooks instead. Rondo or Burks? I will take Burks. Kawhi and George Hill or Reggie and Tobias? Reggie and Tobias. They have Thibault starting now? Yes. Yes. Hachimura or Gafford today? I'll take Gafford. Rui or Reggie? Give me Rui. Favors or Howard? Give me Howard. Do you think Washington will concentrate and stop Simmons and Harris now that Embiid is out? I mean, that's kind of what they did in the last game, and Simmons is very limited in how he can score the ball. So that's why I like Harris more. But if you, who's going to stop them? Russell Westbrook's not going to play defense. Ish Smith and Nato aren't going to stop anybody. Daniel Gafford is sure as hell not going to stop anybody. So, they're not going to double team. Washington's not going to double team in this series Tobias Harris, right? They're going to force him to probably not get to the basket as much, but yeah. We'll see how much effort they come out with because they look bad in that second half, Philly. Ben Simmons is obviously very limited in how he can score, especially when he doesn't have Joel Embiid on the court. Do you have any DeAndre Hunter? Yes, I have double the field, and I like him a lot. Connolly or D. Rose? Connolly. Russell, Grayson Allen, or Mitchell and D. Rose? I'll take Russ and Grayson Allen. Do you like Maxey? No. Is Grayson Allen good today? He's fine. He's not a great play, but he's projecting out for under 20 points, but enough at that price point to be in play. I've got a good amount, probably 15, 20%. Single entry GPP is Russ the pay up. And a single entry GPP is Russ the pay up. Yeah, that's where I'm going right now. He's the only pay up option today. It's either him or Luka, and I'll go Russ. All right, again, get your final questions in. Otherwise, we're going to bounce. If you want to tail those prize picks, you are more than capable of, if you are willing to, and you should be willing to. So you can check them out. Prize picks to player props. Look, if you're playing DFS today, you should get into the player props streets because they're softer and they are honestly more enjoyable because you don't have to worry about an entire lineup as much as your 2 or 3 or 4 props on over-unders that you have, mainly because it's smaller slates right now. But I'm excited to play them for NFL as well. But yeah, props becoming more widely available in more states as sports betting becomes opened up in more spots. If you use the code SAL on Prize Picks, link down below, SAL, any money you put in, they'll give you free money, double your money, get some free bets in there. You put 25 in, now you got 50. You put 100 in, now you got 200. They'll double your money up to your first 100. Kleber or Taj Gibson? Kleber. Robin Lopez minutes. I gave him 18. Melton or Allen today? Allen. Morris or O'Neal today? Give me Morris. You haven't mentioned Trae Young. Any thoughts? Yeah, I'm not interested. No interest in Trae Young. The price point's up to a point where I don't really want to get there. Trae Young in real life is playing better than he is for fantasy purposes because of the price point. So, especially in a loaded range. I'd rather, if I'm going for value, just give me Ja Morant. A guy who I know is going to play more minutes, a guy who I know is going to be more aggressive at getting to the basket and projects out better. So, at very similar price points, except more expensive. Trae Young's just too expensive. On a slate now where you have Donovan Mitchell and Ja Morant, and, Trae Young's, pushing towards, Kawhi Leonard price point, and Trae Young has not been producing that to that extent, right? Mitchell and Connolly projections today. I have Mitchell at 44.7, and I have Connolly at 39 flat. Morant or Mitchell? Give me Morant. Mitchell going to be highly owned. He'll be at 20, 25%, so not extremely high, but he'll be owned. Connolly only got 32 minutes last game. Any worries? No. If you watched how the game flow kind of went out on Popcorn Machine, it's not anything that I think is going to be really stuck to him only playing 32 minutes. He's going to play 34 to 35 minutes. Connolly came out for 2 minutes I think he came out for 3 minutes and 53 seconds in the fourth quarter, and that normally won't happen because he got a little bit of a nick up. I think it might have been a nut shot, but I'm not too sure. I just remember seeing that. So Connolly was on pace to play 36 minutes. He lost 3 minutes and 53 seconds in the fourth quarter when he normally wouldn't lose that run. He got a little bit of a tweak. Batum or Kleber? Both suck if we're talking about it. Give me Kleber just because Batum's massively overowned. All right, gang, let's bounce. You like Howard still? Look, I didn't like Howard to begin the day. Was he in a player pool? Yes. Did I think he was a fine play if he started? Yes. Did I want to play him at the beginning of the stream at 50% owned? No, it was Daniel Gafford season, so still Daniel Gafford over Howard. Now, on a slate that's got only Gafford or pay-up options at center, then maybe you find yourself into some Howard still. He'll still play 20-plus minutes off the bench more times than not, but there is a very real chance that he only plays 14, 15 minutes. because they just might opt to keep him as a backup center playing those minutes and just run small or run Simmons at the 5 like they did last time out. Lopez at center, minutes there, 18. Top play for Philly, Tobias Harris. Burks or O'Neal, Burks. Reggie Jackson and Maxey, value plays with upside. Reggie Jackson is, Maxey is definitely not. Alrighty. Howard or Batum? Howard. Gafford or Royce O'Neal? Gafford. Peace out, gang. See you on the next one. Best of luck on today's slate. Like and subscribe before you go. Another NFL video, 3 days in a row with NFL videos for 2021. Both for fantasy and then just kind of a general discussion. Let me know what you think of the vibes of those videos. They're going to be around 10 minutes or so. They've been dropping. One dropped earlier today. You can check it out on this here channel. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And if you want to, you can sign up for Patreon, where we have the golf coming out tomorrow. MMA is back this week. MLB projections daily, and obviously the NBA projections and all the tools and the optimizers. So get up in there. No better time than right now. It's linked down below, and we'll throw it in the chat. Today's post right now if you want to get up in there with the final couple of minutes. See you in the next one, gang. Peace.